Good evening. This is Daniela Caruso, Director for the Center of the Study of Europe at Boston University within the Pardee School of Global Studies. We have the privilege this evening to interview Consul General Federica Sereni of Italy. The topic of our discussion today is solidarity at the time of COVID-19. It is the topic of the day. We're going to address it in a way that is peculiar to our center, which is we take a look at Europe, a continent all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, but we do so very much rooted in the heart of Boston. So let's work with the Consul General Sereni. A few words about this extraordinary woman. She is a graduate of Lewis University in Rome, where she got her law degree. She has been working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy, for 20 years exactly. She started at the Directorate General for Sub-Saharan Africa. And then she worked at several embassies, in particular the Italian embassy in Singapore and then the Italian embassy in Madrid. In 2013, she went back to Rome, and from that base, she led very important and delicate missions, such as the one in Afghanistan, and then in Iraq, and then in Somalia and Venezuela. Since 2018, she's been here in Boston with us, and I welcome her very warmly today to the Center for the Study of Europe. Consul General, I wanted to start your interview, this interview, with a question concerning the impact of COVID-19 on your work here in Boston and on your diplomatic mission.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniela, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share some thoughts with you. And I think that it's a very difficult time for everyone. And obviously the first impact that it had on our mission was to reorganize the sectors that were most exposed to the virus. So first of all, we had to completely reorganize the way that staff was working in order to protect staff and the public at the same time. So we created two teams. The embassy in Washington, D.C. created a task force, and we have virtual meetings every day. We've had them for several weeks now. We all acted as a team, the 9 consulates here in the US. In agreement with the embassy, we all organized the work in a similar way. So we created 2 teams within the consulate. The 2 teams never meet each other, so that if someone should get sick, it's only one team that has to be isolated. The other team can continue working. So this was the first effect was a practical effect. We had to decide which services were essential, and who would be working, how and who would be working on the single sectors. So obviously, the first priority was giving assistance to the many Italians that had problems here, that had issues. The biggest group were the Italians that were here for a certain amount of time and that needed to go back to Italy. So we still have an emergency line that is active 24 hours a day. I monitor that line, and we have a dedicated email address. And so the first priority was to help people go back to Italy. Those that had ESTAs that were expiring, those that had visas or that had family, and that need students are another big issue. Minors especially created a lot of anxiety on our part because they had to be helped individually. So that was our first priority, and that's the first thing that we dedicated all our energies to. The second being passports, because obviously, especially Italians that are here only on Italian passports, we couldn't allow their passports to expire, because in case someone needs to travel, we needed to be able to help them renew their passports. So effectively, that we are on an emergency mode. So we open to the public by appointment once a week. The rest of the days we work from home, and we go if there's an emergency that needs us to be physically present at the consulate, always alternating the 2 teams. So it has changed. I think that's the practical side. On another side, I think it changed my work because it allowed me to reach out to the Italian residents here, because there's a lot of, there are a lot of Italians here, and some of them have you know, smaller groups. So I reached out to the different communities, the students, the more elderly people, the traditional Italians that are here, and I've been making phone calls and trying to get a feel of how people are coping with the epidemic. And I do that daily, especially around these Easter days. I think that people feel that they need a bit of warmth. So we've been trying to reach out as best we can to make Italians here feel that they're not alone, that the consulate is open and working, and that we are there in case they need any form of help or information, either by phone or by email. We're always there. So that's been our main concern, to make the people here feel that they have someone that can listen to them and that can give them answers, as best we can.
Thanks, General Consul, for that. Also on behalf of my own country, which happens to be Italy, of course. I want to ask you, the relationship with other consuls here in Boston. Have you worked as a team more so than before?
Yes. I must say, we have regular weekly calls now with all the EU colleagues and the UK colleague as well. We exchange best practices, we exchange information, and we have a WhatsApp group that is very, very active. So we exchange from practical information on flights, for example. We help each other deal with cases that might overlap the single countries. For example, I recently had an Italian. He had to fly back to Italy, but he was going through Paris because there are no more direct flights from Boston to Rome. I contacted my French colleague and put the Italian in contact with the French consulate, and they helped him with the paperwork that was needed in Paris. So I think that and we've always been a very close group. The colleagues are fantastic, but I think that more so now we just reach out to each other and as a group to see how others are dealing with the epidemic. We all have similar issues of nationals, citizens that need to go back, of citizens that ask us questions as to how they can be tested. The issues that we face are similar. So I think we find comfort in coordinating, and we've been doing it much more frequently now than we did before. So as we were saying with the EU colleagues just a few days ago, some good things will come out of this horrible situation.
The silver lining is perhaps closer cooperation. Thank you so much. Now, of course, a lot of common issues you refer to, but let's work on the peculiarities of Italy now. So from your standpoint, how does the Italian approach, for instance, compare to the one taken here in the United States? So if you wanted to give Bostonians a sense of how the Italian government has coped with the virus epidemic, what differences and similarities would you identify?
I think that we were hit very hard, very early. So the Italian government had to adopt very strict measures, and the public reacted in a very positive way. Obviously, it's a big sacrifice that the population has to endure, and the measures that we needed to adopt were very strict in order to be able to contain the spread of the virus and to protect our health system from collapsing. And I think that we have managed to achieve that. The numbers in Italy are encouraging. That does not mean we can feel relaxed about what is going on, but at least I think there is a very a positive idea of the effect of the measures that have been put in place by our government. The US are going towards a similar approach. I think they I mean, Italy has been a lesson learned for many other countries. Unfortunately, we had to learn the hard way. But from what I see here, especially at a state level, at a city of Boston level, all the decisions are going towards social distancing, protecting yourself and the others of your community, and being very careful in dealing with this pandemic. So I think that probably Italy was an example for many countries regarding the risks that you can run, and also the measures that it takes to actually contain the spread of the virus.
Great. What about the lesson to Italy itself? Like, Italy has a history of, say, north-south division, or struggling with the socioeconomic barriers within the country itself. Do you feel that the coronavirus has somehow, focusing again on the silver lining, made any difference in, say, the north-south relations, or in the unity of the country across socioeconomic class?
I think it has. I don't want to be only optimistic, because obviously it has created a lot of suffering, both on a health level of the health system, on a personal level for many families, and on an economic and financial level, obviously. But I think that in the north-south divide, there's been a lot of solidarity from the south towards the north. There was a beautiful picture that was posted a while ago on social media that I found was very significant, and it was two hands holding each other. One was from the north, and the south was holding the north in its hand to show support. I think that this virus attacks anyone, whether they're from the north, the south, different regions, and it's not a question of I'm from the north, you're from the south anymore. It's more a question of we are all together, and we need to be together to fight this virus. So I think that's something that this virus, if we want to see the silver lining, it is solidarity. Solidarity within the country, and solidarity between different countries. I think that's a very important lesson that I hope is not lost once we finally are over this period of time.
So talking about solidarity between countries, at the level of Europe, what is your assessment of the spirit of solidarity? Solidarity within Italy has particular tones. I mean, it is a country with its own design of the welfare state, with a particular religious tradition that may or may not have had an impact, depending on how you see it. In Europe, where these typical notions of Italian solidarity are not applied, how has the paradigm of solidarity played out? Solidarity is indeed a word in the treaty establishing the European Union. It is a doctrine in the Catholic Church, but again, it's a doctrine that doesn't mandate, doesn't create immediate obligations. It's an exhortation of behavior. How has solidarity worked in between the European countries in the perspective of your government?
Well, I think that it's a work in progress. Obviously, this is something that that my country has felt on a higher level compared to other countries within Europe, because the level of contagion, the level of the virus in Italy is much higher than many other European countries. There are certain European countries, such as Spain, that are in a similar situation. But obviously, it's something that it's a challenge that Europe has had to face and is still facing. Now, as I said earlier, I think it's a work in progress. So it's something completely new. We have to look at it with a new kind of different attitude. We can't look at this situation with the same rules that we consider, the traditional ones. So I think that this is something that will come out of the situation. I am very confident that Europe as a whole will be strengthened by the situation and by the challenge, and it will definitely be up to the challenge. I'm very, very sure of that.
And have the recent events like the meeting of last Thursday, etc., confirmed your optimism in the possibility of reaching a solution that indeed bears the name of solidarity?
I mean, I see a lot of progress. If we look back over the last weeks, there definitely has been a major shift from where we started to where we are going. I think that there's still a way ahead that we still need to, there's a distance we still need to cover, but I'm confident that we'll get there. Yes, as a whole, I'm sure we'll get there. And regarding Europe with other countries, Italy has had solidarity expressed by many countries. Many have helped out with masks, with financial help. The help we've received from the US is amazing. So there are different levels of solidarity, I think, within the European Union, between Italy itself or different European countries and other countries such as the US, and also on a very, let's say, essential personal level. Over the weekend, I received a wonderful email from a doctor here in Massachusetts, and she's created a video that we'll be posting on our website soon, in which she wanted to thank doctors from Bergamo, because as she explained in the email, while Bergamo, as you know, the city of Bergamo is one of the hardest hit by the virus. So while the doctors in the hospital, Papa Giovanni specifically, were battling against the virus with many human losses within the medical, operators, nurses, doctors, and so forth, they found time to train doctors from Massachusetts that were working in a hospital here. And they actually helped them set up their COVID response unit. And the doctor here was amazed by the fact that they were so generous in their time. Even if they were under a critical pressure by what was going on in their hospital, they still found time to express their solidarity, their generosity. And so the American doctors wanted to thank their peers in Bergamo. But I think that this is just an example. It's a very beautiful example of how exceptional situations can bring out the best in people. And I think they bring out the best in countries and the best in individuals. That's, I'm convinced that there will be, it's not only a question of silver lining, but there will be lessons that we all learn from this pandemic, and then hopefully we're able to keep with us in the future.
I see, Consul, that we are really circling back. We started with a focus on Boston, and then we went to Italy, and then we went to Europe, and now we are back at the international cooperation, Boston and Bergamo. Do you feel that at the international level, the last of the concentric circles we are exploring here, do you feel that the international level, the lesson will be learned, at least in the short and medium term?
I think so, yes. I think so, because the pandemic hits everyone. It's not a question of, my country will be better off than yours. We all need to adopt similar measures for this virus to stop. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to fighting this virus. And I'm obviously not a doctor, but until there's a cure or some form of vaccine, every country, most of the countries, are adopting similar measures. And what is done in one country affects what is done in its neighboring countries, because obviously, the virus can spread even through contact between, people coming from different countries. So I think that the fact that you all feel that you're at war, if we want, against a common enemy, because this enemy poses a very similar threat to every population in the world, I think that is something that will make countries feel that they need to cooperate. And so I think that multilateral cooperation will eventually be strengthened by this virus, and not you know, it will not be made weaker, but I think it will be eventually strengthened.
So you think that the identification of this common enemy, which in the future might be, for instance, environmental damage, etc., is something that this crisis is bringing to the fore and making perhaps a little bit more tractable than before?
Hopefully. I think that on this virus specifically, it's very hard to imagine that someone might say, you know, it doesn't regard my country specifically, because obviously it is something that is affecting everyone. Without, you know, it does not make any differences in where you're from, what sort of country you live in. It's something that affects everyone at the same time or in different periods of time, but eventually it's something that we all have to deal with. So I think that the idea that we all have to deal with it together is something that we will, you know, keep with us after this is over. And so the need for cooperation, for stronger cooperation, and also solidarity itself, because, for example, I have received so many emails, phone calls, letters, asking me not only for services or for information, but asking me what we needed. And this is a complete shift, because as a consulate, you usually try to, you know, you're the one helping other people with services, with information, with, you know, whatever is the need, you're there to provide an answer. This time, what I noticed was that things were completely reversed. I mean, we were receiving offers of help, whether it was support. I had doctors call me saying if the Italian citizens want information regarding the virus, we can be on call. Simple citizens asking if they could, you know, give funding. We received many offers of help, and of just some people sent us, you know, $20 bills just to show that they wanted to support the country. And I thought that was very touching, extremely touching. And it's very different from the usual atmosphere that we have with the public, because obviously this goes way beyond a business as usual attitude. It's a very touching and very emotional sort of reaction.
Thank you, Consul. On this beautiful note, I will let you go back to your busy day. And thank you so much for taking the time. This has been incredibly informative. And we'll see you soon. All the best to you, and all the best to the Italian people in this difficult situation.
Thank you, Professor Caruso. Thank you, Daniela. And I really appreciate your offer and the chance to be here with you. Thank you.
Take care. Goodbye.